Forbes India Leadership Awards 2023.
Please welcome Dr. Rajiv Shah, President of the Rockefeller Foundation, to deliver the keynote address of the evening on the importance of leadership and collaboration for a green recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for Dr. Rajiv Shah.
Well, thank you for that very kind introduction, and welcome. Good evening, everybody, here in this lovely setting at this wonderful Forbes India event. I really do want to and let you know that I'm thrilled to be here. Myself and my family are flying back home to the United States in a few hours, and I'm thrilled to have the chance to join you and share some thoughts, and frankly, to recognize and honor all of those who you are honoring this evening. On behalf of the Rockefeller Foundation, which is an institution that is committed to scientific philanthropy and using our resources and our reach around the world to help those who are vulnerable lead better lives, we're thrilled to be with you, and we're thrilled to maintain now a 110-year-old commitment to India and the people of India on a comprehensive basis. Over that period of time, we've had the chance to work with extraordinary leaders who have brought science and innovation to transform the lives of tens of millions of people in this country, and hundreds of millions and even billions around the world. Some of those individuals are Indian origin leaders who have done dramatic things in our history. Leaders like Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, with whom we partnered to ensure science and innovation in agriculture yielded a green revolution here in India, but also improved crop yields and helped 1 billion people move off the brink of starvation in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, a movement which rightly won the Nobel Peace Prize, among other important recognitions. More recently, our scientific collaborations have included working with Dr. Vijay Raghavan, the former principal scientific advisor to the government of India, where during the heat of the COVID crisis, we were able to collaborate with the government to accelerate the development, innovation, and manufacturing of rapid PCR tests for COVID, many of which we all still use today in order to protect ourselves in what is now a global and endemic disease. These examples, the Green Revolution, our work on COVID testing here and abroad, in particular in the United States, are examples of what we at the Rockefeller Foundation call big bets. It's the basic idea that philanthropy can play a tremendous role in reshaping the societies in which we live, making them more just, making them more inclusive, and making them live up to the ultimate Gandhian principle that every person should be treated with dignity and be given an opportunity for opportunity and, in fact, sustainable futures. That principle has continued to be at play for the Foundation today. Our big bets have a few common characteristics. The first is they're defined by bold aspirations, that we can end under 5 child mortality around the world and here in India, that we can address the 700 million people who live in hunger even today, and that we can end, our biggest effort right now is to end energy poverty. The fact that 770 million people, nearly half of whom still live in India, don't have enough energy to allow for productive living. They don't have enough energy to turn on a light bulb and run a few appliances on a 24/7 basis here in India or around the world. And what we've learned over time is that lack of access to energy is actually totally debilitating to their hopes and aspirations to grow their future and to provide for their children. So during the height of the COVID pandemic, we actually issued the Foundation's first ever social impact bond. We raised almost $1 billion, and we committed $500 million of that, the single largest grant our foundation has ever made, to one big project. We call it the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. We set 3 specific targets: that we would use the renewable energy technology revolution to end energy poverty for 1 billion people around the world, that we would use that same energy technology revolution to reduce by 4 billion metric tons of carbon emissions the level of carbon that is used in producing energy in service of the world's poorest families and populations. And that we would use the renewable energy technology revolution to create 150 million new green jobs. Jobs that give people dignity, hope, and the ability to lift up their families, and do so in economies that might range from parts of rural Bihar, where I visited in 2019 and saw our efforts at work, or in South Africa, where our efforts to create millions of new green jobs is taking place in a context where the economy has a 47% official unemployment rate. Why are we so confident that this big bet can succeed? We're confident because as we look around the technology frontier and as we experiment and innovate with Indian innovators, with African innovators, with Latin American innovators, and with some innovators still in the United States and Europe, we just see tremendous opportunity for solar, wind, hydro, and other renewable energies to be applied to solve problems that people have faced for many decades. For example, in India, we've rolled out nearly 700 mini-grids, small solar installations that provide 30 to 50 kilowatts in total to villages, largely as backup power for when government power goes out. If you talk to our thousands of customers from those mini-grids, you'll learn a few things. The first is they'll pay for power that's provided at an affordable price point. The second is all of them will pay, and almost always pay, making those projects commercially viable. And the third is the most important, is they are mostly small businesses that will then use that energy and electricity to invest in power tools, to buy power sewing machines, to start schools and programs that can run at night in villages, and create the kind of economic growth and jobs that can lift up originally families, communities, and over time, entire societies. This is just one small example. On this particular visit, I had a chance to be in New Delhi, meeting with government officials and leaders, and we now see so much potential for India's big aspirations in renewable energy. India has set the goal to develop 500 gigawatts of new energy. We have set the goal with ourselves and our Indian counterparts to ensure that some appropriate share of that renewable energy technology revolution reaches those who are otherwise left behind, those whom the grid does not reach, those who depend on diesel to run operations and pay 50, 60, 70 cents a kilowatt hour to do so, when we can provide them solar-based energy at 15 or 20 cents a kilowatt hour and save and change their livelihoods. I saw one example of that distributed renewable energy application at work just yesterday or 2 days ago in the Rann of Kutch area where the salt pan workers work. By helping hundreds of salt pan workers convert from using diesel-based irrigation pumps to solar, we have helped them double, even triple their incomes, and do so in a much more effective manner, giving them the opportunity to send their kids to school and hopefully to lead a better life. That's what big bets are all about. And I know many of you here are philanthropists, many of you are corporate leaders, many of you represent or have relationships with government. If there's any one thing we've learned in 110 years of doing this in health, in food, in energy, in racial equality, we've learned that it's about building alliances and building unlikely partnerships. In America, that means getting Republicans and Democrats to work together. We've actually made that happen time and time again, behind closed doors, but we're able to make it happen. In India, maybe it means allowing organizations like the Self-Employed Women's Association to partner with big industrialist families who have access to technology and financing at a scale that is extraordinarily cheaper and more relevant than SEWA or any other NGO ever could. It's those collaborations, more than the resources that philanthropists themselves can invest, that have the potential to change the world. So let me leave you with this as a final thought. After a week in India and a few hours before a flight, I have come away incredibly optimistic about the potential of this great nation, a nation from which my parents are from and a nation which I visit and have been committed to for many decades in many different contexts. I really do believe India will achieve its goal of, by 2047, being a high-income country. There's no question in my mind that you've made many of the tough changes in the banking, financial transactions, regulatory, debt management systems that are necessary to build an economy that can achieve that outcome. There's also no question in my mind that you have the innovation and innovative capacity to lead that charge. But here's the question. By 2047, when India is in fact the world's largest country and maybe the world's largest economy, will all of that growth and all of that wealth be inclusive? India already has many wealthy people. One can drive around Mumbai and look at the buildings and recognize that. But the question is, how inclusive will growth actually be here? And that's what the Rockefeller Foundation's committed to. Partnerships with government, partnerships with companies, partnerships with banks and investors, partnerships with nations around this year's G20 summit to demonstrate that, in fact, if you all work with each other, if you all stretch yourselves more than you otherwise would, if you all think of philanthropy less as doing a little bit of charity with those who are left behind, and more as making investments in alliances and bringing technology and resource to those who have the dignity and capacity to lift themselves up, then I think India can not only be the world's richest economy in 2047, but it can be the world's most inclusive. And that is perhaps our only opportunity to once and for all demonstrate there's a path in the modern world to end extreme poverty. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this evening. And let me just encourage you to go for it, because your big bet will in fact change the world. Thank you.
Forbes India Leadership Awards 2023.